Hello YouTube, my name's Jeremy Vance, this is Dota 2 and this is an introduction to Timbersaw. Timbersaw is a very strange hero, until recently seen as a bit of a joke hero almost. Recently though, he's seen a couple buffs that have made him absolutely playable, and he has extremely high burst damage. He's generally played as a core hero, either in the offlane or in the solo mid. The way that you actually lane and the way that you play the hero varies greatly depending on which lane that you've gone to. In this case, I'm going to be playing a solo mid Timbersaw. This is very different to how you will normally see him played, or how you would have traditionally seen him played, or how you would have seen him played when, like, you know, in pub games before. The solo mid build is been something that's been popularized by S4, Arteezy, a couple of other high profile players, and is generally a pretty damn good build. It's definitely professionally viable, and you know, this is a really strong starting. I've started with Arteezy's started items here, which when I click on myself in the game is a stout shield, a set of tangos and a salve. Generally you would need stats in the mid lane, but you have pretty damn good, or at least okay, starting base stats, and you will not be trying to last hit too much. You will generally be using Whirling Death to get your last hits, and speaking of which, I'm going to just start off the game now. You can see, again, trying to creep block, but I think this was just after I watched the whole of TI3, so my gameplay recently has been a little bit which is why there hasn't been much out. As far as guides and stuff for Dota, because I wasn't playing very much. So you can see I'm against the Shadow Fiend mid. First last hit I went and got it with Whirling Death, as well as putting some harass on him. As far as skills go, Whirling Death is an 8-second cooldown, so very short cooldown nuke that does scaling damage from 100 to 250. This is magic damage, but if you cut down a tree at the same time, this ends up being pure damage, and our axe is, he's not very good offlaning, and has obviously never played an offlaner before, because I think if I remember rightly, he said like, what is this like solo side lane thing? And solo side laning is normal, guys. It's on the offlane where he is, and he's going to feed there. It's not entirely his fault though. If somebody's unused to stuff like that, then you know they're always going to lose. You can see I can't really contend with the Shadow Fiend for last hits here. I'm just trying to sort of get in his way. In the end, it's just going to get me hit a lot. So the radius on this is pretty small. It's instant as soon as you cast it. I think I got that last hit with it, but you can see I'm just trying to get up my bottle as quick as possible here. I am also leveling reactive armor equally with Whirling Death here. I'm going to max this out first. This basically means that I can very easily CS in lane. It's a lot similar to how a Queen of Pain would CS, or any sort of AoE spamming hero in the mid lane. You know, it's pretty simple stuff, much like Dragon Knight. I can't think of anyone else who comes to mind. Tiny is a good example. Third skill, the skill that I'm also going to be leveling up at the same time. You can tell, by the way, those of you who have played Timbersaw before and know what they're doing will notice that this is very different to the standard skill build. I'll talk about that later. But currently I'm going to be maxing reactive armor as well. What reactive armor does is it is a passive activated every single time you get attacked. You can see here it's activated 4 times. It stacks up, and each stack lasts 16 seconds. The max stats goes from 4 to 16, and for each stack that you have, every time you get hit you gain a stack, you gain +1 bonus armor and +1 bonus regen, which means that in an extended fight you become extremely difficult to kill, because you end up with much higher base, much higher health regen than everybody else, and you end up with a ton of armor. Early on this isn't as great. Later on it scales fantastically if you get enough HP and you just fight and you don't get stunned and locked down for a long period of time. Timbersaw's virtually invincible and does a ton of damage. He really hits hard. So you can see here I'm just trying to keep the Shadow Fiend's stats low every time I am going to go in for a Whirling Death on creeps. I'm going to try and get him as well, but most of the time I'm not going to manage to. So you can see I've used up all my bottle charges as well as a tango. And for the moment I'm just trying to stay and get CS, get myself XP, etc. I will at some point try and push out the lane further to give me a chance to go for runes, probably at the 4-minute mark, but I believe someone took the last rune. I can't remember. One thing to talk about is that Timbersaw has very, very poor base damage and not a great attack animation, and this is fine. Despite the fact that Timbersaw is in fact a semi-carry, he is terrible, and I mean truly awful, at actually hitting people repeatedly. This is because the way that Timbersaw scales is to do with reactive armor, essentially, and now that sounds a little bit weird to some people, but the longer that you survive and the more mana that you have, the more damage that you will do, because Timbersaw actually has 3 nukes to his disposal, which is an incredibly high amount. As well as this, he's focused a lot on pure damage. Whirling Death does pure damage if you cut a tree with it. Timbersaw does pure damage, and his ultimate chakram also does pure damage. All of his skills do pure damage. So here, I saw that the Shadow Fiend was going to outlane me for a little bit. There was no way I was going to stand in the lane anymore. It's just a waste of time. So I'm just going to go back to base. This is kind of bad for me. It means I lose out on a lane of XP. But I would rather do it and then just TP back than perhaps give up a kill and feed in the mid lane. I'll lose less XP this way. I'll lose less gold. I'll give the enemy less gold. I must have been talking to somebody at this point. I think the axe. I think I might have been typing to the axe. So as soon as I get into the fountain, I should be bottling up like that. But either way, as far as people that I'm playing with this game, it looks like I'm playing with Slayer and Ashe. The random people are an axe and a Nature's Prophet. The axe is struggling greatly on his lane. And overall, we're not doing great at the moment. We don't have particularly great laning heroes. I wouldn't say they do either. But Timbersaw is not a good laning hero. A matchup like Shadow Fiend is actually one that he struggles with, which is unusual given that Shadow Fiend's normally quite easy to beat, at least for the first few levels. But Timbersaw's actually weakest at level 1. He's really bad at that point, you know. He has pretty much nothing. So I picked up level 6 here. You can see my skill build has basically been 3 in Whirling Death. I'm going to max this first. 2 in reactive armor, and getting my ultimate chakram. The ultimate chakram, you can see the range of it there. You throw it out, and it does damage based on the amount of health that they are missing. You can see me using it there and completely failing. It's on a very short 8-second cooldown. It uses up mana as you use it though. I gave Slayer that kill on purpose there. We saw the Shadow Fiend was going for the Prophet. I had no idea what the Prophet was doing on that hill, but we saw that the Shadow Fiend was going for Prophet there, and just decided to pick up an easy kill for us. See, my CS isn't great at the moment. 23 for 1 at 6 minutes in. It's really quite poor. But it doesn't matter too much. Timbersaw is not as item dependent as people seem to believe, but he does scale very, very well with items, and generally if you're playing on the solo mid you do want items, you know, because otherwise you're wasting the lane basically. So Shadow Fiend's TP'd mid, and I'm going to go up top because I know there was a rune there, because I was down the bottom room at the 6-minute mark and it wasn't there, and I know nobody else has probably left the lane to go and get it. So here I'm going to go top with a haste rune here and try and gank for the axe, but I don't think this is actually going to go well for us. He's really, really severely underleveled, and we're just not in a good position to actually find any kills. As well as that, they do have a fair amount of disables in their lane, and a Pugner, who is very, very good versus you, because using Chakram takes up a lot of mana, and you're just generally very mana dependent. So you can see, one thing to talk about as well about Chakram is you cannot also attack while using it, which means that Timbersaw's base damage is essentially useless, given that Chakram is your most powerful skill. So I went up for that gank on the top lane, and there's just nothing I can do against this tri-lane with only 2 heroes, and it was a really bad call of me to actually bother. The axe was like, you know, asking for me to help him a lot, but in a situation like this, there's no way I can ever get a kill on them. They're 3 heroes with 2 disables, 1 slow, so that's a sort of disable, and a ward that will do damage based on the amount of mana I use. Timbersaw uses a ton of mana. He's actually a hero that's known for it. It's why the most common item on him, as far as what, you know, people aim for, and what I'm going to be aiming for this game, is actually a bloodstone, which is a huge mana item, as well as a very, very good snowball item. And that's one thing that Timbersaw is very, very strong at. He's an extraordinarily good snowball hero. If the enemy gets on a back foot against a Timbersaw, he can very, very easily take the game over. Surprisingly, as well as that, he's also very good at coming back and defending, you know, fighting from a bad position. He's not, you know, so for instance in this game, we are currently behind. I'm behind you know, relatively heavily compared to where I'd like to be. It's 8 minutes in, I've managed to get level 8. That's not particularly great. It's kind of average. It looks like they're not doing particularly great either, but honestly, I was not impressed with my performance this game, and this is more of a guide just, you know, putting it out there for Timbersaw, rather than, you know, showing off excellent gameplay or anything, which has always been the point of these, by the way. Even with the perfect game ones, it's showing off how you get those perfect games, not, you know, just showing off my gameplay. And Slayer came in for a gank here, which was really strange. I didn't quite get why, but we were trying to gank the Shadow Fiend a fair amount here, just because the Shadow Fiend mid is very, very gankable. So Ashe comes in, he's going to go behind. I'm going to throw out Chakram. You can see when he gets to low health like that, he can hardly move. Chakram does more damage the lower your health is. It also increases the slow that it puts on them based on the amount of health they've lost. So if someone's below sort of 30% health, they can barely move inside the Chakram, and it's a very, very strong skill because of that. It also does damage when it leaves them and when it hits them. So what you'll see a lot of people doing is throwing a Chakram out and then onto high health enemies, and then immediately pulling it back, and this will actually do a lot more damage than trying to keep them on it. So I picked up 1,000 gold here. I'm going to go straight and pick up my arcane boots. This is really important for me to have. Bottle's a fair amount of mana, guys, but as I said before, Timbersaw takes up a lot of mana. Something like if you use Chakram and then hold it out for 2 seconds, it will cost you 175 mana. If you use Whirling Death as well, you've used up 275 mana. If you start using Timber Chain with that, that's 90 mana a pop as well. It adds up fast, guys. Timbersaw is very, very mana dependent, and if you don't have a fair amount of items on him, you are going to be going back to base a lot. And that's one thing to think about. So generally I do prefer him on the mid lane rather than the off lane, because on the off lane you're more likely to not get any items. So picked up my 3rd level of reactive armor. At this point I probably don't need more than 2 levels of reactive armor. I decided to pick up a 3rd. I can't remember if I picked up a 4th or not, but I should start maxing Timber Chain as well. Timber Chain's probably the most iconic of Timbersaw's abilities next to Chakram. Basically you throw it out, it's a hook, it hits a tree. If it hits a tree, you will immediately fly to that area at high speed. You can see here we're going for another gank on the Shadow Fiend here. It's very, very easy for us to do this. However, I'm going to make a mistake at this point. I didn't throw my Chakram at the right point, I threw it around there. And because of this, it's very possible that, yeah, Ashe is going to he does go down afterwards. And that was my mistake. I should have thrown the Chakram through the trees, so he instantly got vision of where he was. And it looks like Slayer's picked up a stupidly late Midas. Don't do that, guys. Sorry. I hope he watches this, and don't pick up a late Midas, even on SK. Although I guess it worked out this game because he was, still further ahead as far as carry heroes were going than anybody else on their team, particularly for experience, which is one thing that Midas is very, very good for. That it's underrated at. People don't realize just how strong it is for getting you XP. It's not entirely for gold. So I was thinking about getting a Yule Scepter here, but this really isn't very cost efficient, and the actual active of it, I don't have any real use for. So I'm going to pick up some extra armor. Whilst my passive gives me a fair amount of armor as well, it's nice to start with some armor. It won't scale particularly well, so you can see that's the first use of Timbersaw so far. I used it just to pick up that rune a little bit faster. I knew I was going to get it anyway, but I thought, hell, why not? There's absolutely no reason not to. So I'm going to go on this Chaos Knight here. I'm going to go around the top. I am invis. I used 1 bottle charge while I was in the fade time, so I'm going to go up here, get guaranteed, go off with that, and it looks like we're going to get the kill. I did get stunned, so you can see the Chakram stays out. Really don't want this to happen because it uses up a ton of mana, but So I picked up the Chainmail here. As far as items you can turn this into, prefer Blade Mail, to be honest. Blade Mail is a very, very strong item on Timbersaw, because if you use it when you're initiating fights, which is something that Timbersaw does a fair amount, although he doesn't want to always initiate. He's not a dedicated initiator. If you start a fight as a Timbersaw, generally people will focus you because you're the first one there. And doing so with Blade Mail on, if you have very, very low armor, but generally a lot of HP, which is what happens a lot with Timbersaw, because you build HP items on him, because you rely on your passive reactive armor to give you the most sort of armor survivability. if you initiate a fight with blade mail on, if they focus you, they'll take a much higher amount of damage than most other heroes would, because you start off with such incredibly low base armor. You start off with 1 or 2 base armor and it doesn't increase very fast. The stat gain on Timbersaw is not particularly great. It's okay on strength and pretty good on intelligence. It used to be terrible on intelligence, and until that point it was... Until that was improved, Timbersaw was not viable in a competitive sense, and was pretty poor in pub sense too. So, again, even though we've tried several ganks on him, the Shadow Fiend is going to get kind of scary at some point, but I have got a level advantage over him now, and as long as I continue to pick up all these runes, I should be able to kill him now and again in lane. You can see I've not gone to the bottom lane very much. That's because there's a Weaver bot, and without high levels in Timber Chain, which, by the way, increasing the range, increases the range. Each level that you get of Timber Chain increases its range, the speed that it goes at, as well as the damage, and that guy's just wrong, you know? Don't be like that, guys. It's very offensive. I thought that creep would survive, but oh well. Yeah, see, it's just a douche thing to do. You shouldn't be like that guy. It's a douche thing to do. So if I have higher levels of Timber Chain, I can go after a Weaver because I'm much faster moving around and I can move around much longer distances. But in this build, Timbersaw is a lot more immobile, but what he makes up for in this is that he gets a lot more farm, so he's a lot harder to kill. And if he's a lot harder to kill, he can do more damage. So generally this build, less maneuverable, but a lot more deeps. You know, choose whether you like that or not. Personally, I still kind of prefer the sort of maneuverability based Timbersaw build. And here, that was a really good move from the CM to disable me, and then use her ultimate like that, because otherwise I would definitely have died. And here, you can see how Stout Shield procs, as well as the very high reactive armor, means that it's actually really difficult to kill me there. See, now everybody gets like this. I think Ash meant it in a much more joking way, but the other one... See, he's complaining about the fact that Tide solo ravaged him. Ash was talking about this in the game, and I totally agree with him. Solo ravaging someone at this stage in the game, where the enemy team is not really grouping up and pushing, is keeping spread out. Why not? It's going to be up for the next time they team fight. Use your ravage. Sure, if the enemy team is more likely to group up, then you want to save it for one of those good moments. Or if you're more likely to group up and take a push, then you might want to save it for a better moment. But in a game like this, where the enemy team is spread out, look how they're spread out across the map. One here, one in the base, one in the mid lane, 2 in the bottom lane, I think. Yeah, 2 in the bottom lane. That's a very spread out map, so... And that guy just missed a haste rune because he was not looking where he was going. So it looks like Slayer's kind of fucked, but I think he has his respawn. I don't know, let's check it out. He does have his respawn, so it actually doesn't matter. I'm going to pick up this haste rune and then immediately go straight to this fight at the bottom. So in this fight, maybe we would have wanted Ravage, but either way, we got a kill just beforehand on someone. So you can see the massive amount of burst damage that I'm able to do. That CM was at pretty much full health, and I just bursted her down with only using 1 right click and 2 nukes. So despite the fact that you're very mana dependent, you can actually use fairly few nukes because pure damage does such an incredible amount of damage. Remember, normal nukes and such, and normal spells have a 25% resistance on most heroes. I think Meepo has a 34% resistance, but he's a very unusual hero. So, yeah, I was trying to get one of those long range chakrams where you just use it and immediately pull it back for extra damage on him, but I wasn't able to do that. And it looks like here we're trying to push this lane, but it's a little bit difficult, and I think they've came in with reinforcements. Yeah, the Crystal Maiden's here, and the Pugna's here as well, which are heroes that I just do not want to fight, because Pugna's a right bastard to deal with. So I finished my Blade Mail at this point. Generally, I would rush Bloodstone, but I wasn't going to farm a lot this game, and I wasn't going to get it at a reasonably fast time, because I wasn't going to farm a huge amount, and I'd rather have an effect on the map right now. So I decided to go for a fast Blade Mail instead. I'll get this much earlier than I would have got a fast Bloodstone, and as well as this, it's an item that's more useful at this stage of the game, I believe. It's very strong as well versus around 3 or 4 of their heroes. It's very, very strong versus Weaver. He's got a fairly low HP pool and he does a lot of damage. Very, very strong versus Pugner. He will not be expecting a blade mail on him. It's pretty damn strong versus Shadow Fiend until he gets things like BKB and such. And it's pretty damn strong versus Crystal Maiden as well, because obviously she's very, very low health. So picking up an early blade mail like this is, you know, I wouldn't exactly always advise this. I think if you're going to get more farm than I am, then definitely go for something else. But I only have 71 CS, which is, you know, nothing special. That's what I would say below average, and that's not unusual for me. Generally, I have pretty low creep scores for my skill bracket. I focus a lot more on ganking. That's just part of my personal playstyle. I wouldn't personally advise it though. So, last hits are good. Last hits are good for you guys. It's also part of the fact that I am a shit last hitter. So here, I wasn't looking what I was doing, and that's the end result. I did try to chimper chain out, you can see that, but I died on the way, and I just sort of, my exploded body flies across the floor. That's pretty much the end result of this. It was a good ult by Ashe, but unluckily it didn't actually hit the Shadow Fiend. Slayer's going to go in anyway, because why not? You know, he's pretty strong. And luckily our team is going to do pretty well in this fight here. The axe should have actually ran after the Nature's Prophet then, not the Nature's Prophet, the Crystal Maiden then. She would have definitely really easily gotten the kill in that situation, and the other guy was guaranteed dead already beforehand, so that's just something I noticed then. It's not like it's not really a part of the commentary, but in a situation like that, guys, where you have a guaranteed kill, you may as well charge after people who are not quite so guaranteed. So in this case, Ashe didn't want to have to fight into the tower, so they are going to manage to deny it in the mid, which is kind of annoying, but it would have been much, much worse if Ashe tried to get the tower hit kill and then died for it, or perhaps didn't get it and took a lot more damage for it. He maybe had to back off or something. Looks like I'm missing a double damage rune here. Nature's Prophet's going to pick it up, that's fine with me. He's going to do a lot more damage with a DD rune than I am. Like I said before, Timbersaw doesn't exactly hit too often. So here CK uses his illusions. I'm going to try and stay with him. Annoyingly enough, Nature's Prophet's trees have a sort of weird anti-synergy sometimes with Timbersaw. Sometimes they're very useful for your team if Nature's Prophet's treeing people for you, because it can mean that you can guarantee chakrams off. Other times they can get in the way, and generally they get in the way. So not exactly ideal, but we still picked up the kill quite easily on that guy. I'm working with Ashe here, trying to keep people out of the area. You can see I timber chained in here. I put the chakram just onto mostly towards the side in which I knew he would have to go, otherwise he would be going forwards, and he couldn't blink out at that point. I did this because I knew he was going to have to retreat, and I wanted to try and get as much damage on him as possible. Axe picks up a kill on the Crystal Maiden here, and we're just trying to zone them out from this area. So currently my score isn't great, my CS isn't great, but I've had a fairly big impact on the map. My presence has certainly been felt, and I'm doing a lot of damage. You can see there I just did half health to the Shadow Fiend. So here I'm trying to go on this Weaver, but Weaver's an incredibly annoying hero to actually go on. And none of us actually have dust, so unless he puts himself in a really bad situation without time-lapse up, there's no way that we're going to kill him. We also only have one stun, which is Tide's Ravage, which is currently up at this point. So you can see there, as well as that, as well as the other things I've talked about, Timbersaw is a very, very fast farmer if he needs to be. He can clear jungle camps very, very fast, he's very maneuverable. Using a combination of Whirling Death and Chakram can very, very quickly pick up a lot of creeps. It doesn't do as much damage as normal nukes would, but they have very, very low cooldowns, which is why he does have a damage scaling in some ways, but it's more based off the fact that his cooldowns are so low and whether he has mana to use all his spells continuously, rather than on any passive that makes him do a lot more damage, which is why I would say the passive that actually makes him do more damage is his survivability. Kind of similar to a Dragon Knight, except a Dragon Knight, you know, his is more about doing sort of AoE damage with your ultimate and such, and no, ignore the Dragon Knight analogy, because yeah, I haven't done a video on solo mid Dragon Knight yet, and I need to do that actually, because solo mid Dragon Knight is one of my most favourite things, and it looks to me at the moment that someone's put up a really shit guide. This is one thing that I really want to talk about, guys, and I thought I'd just take a couple seconds, is the guides on Steam. If you don't know who it is that's made the guide, assume it's shit, because all of the ones that I've seen so far that have been sort of top voted ones for particular heroes have been. They've all been really bad. And I know that sounds like crazy. You would think, oh, well, you know, surely they will be good if they were top voted. Well, here's the thing. I play in the high matchmaking bracket half the time, and the other half of the time I don't play in the high matchmaking bracket. I generally play with friends. A fair amount are worse than me, a fair amount are better than me. I would put myself on the edge of the high matchmaking bracket, if I'm honest to myself. That means that I am probably on the edge of the top 20% of players in Dota. I feel like my play is what I think an average player should be able to accomplish. So what that's meaning is that if you're listening to a guide from me, and you're listening to one of those guides is likely to be from an average player, an actual average player, rather than what I feel should be average play. What this means is that the guides are written by some pretty poor players overall, and generally people who don't understand enough about the mechanics, enough about positioning, enough about roles to actually be good at the game and to actually make guides on the game. But they will make guides on the game anyway, based on the fact that people are generally pretty aggressive as far as how great they think they are. Like I said, I am not a great player. I play in the top 20%, but I make mistakes all the time. I hate my play sometimes. The other day I played Shadow Demon and I fed in my lane a ton and got like no kill involvement and was just terrible. Sure, I was playing at like 2 o'clock, but I don't think there was ever an excuse for play quite as bad as that. So you can see here we go in for this fight. I've turned on my blade mail and gone in for the fight, but I do die pretty damn fast. They lose 3, we lose 4 for this. This is not a good trade for us, especially because we are ahead. This means they actually got a lot more gold for it from this than they did from us. Slayer's now picked up his armlet. His farm is kind of behind, but he's actually got 3.2k gold right now, and I think he's going to go for straight AC at this point. So in reality, his farm is actually pretty damn good, really. Not considering that he got a Midas, but considering he didn't get very much farm early on and he's now doing okay, I would say his farm's pretty okay. I want to know what his farm actually is. Does that... Seems he's only got 111 CS, so Midas really does go a ways to giving you a lot of extra gold. Considering I have around 97 CS, it looks like. That's a very little difference, considering he has probably a good 3k gold more than me invested. So right now, thinking going on the Chaos Knight here, Slayer's going to go in for the stun. I move myself up into position using my Timber Chain. I'm going to immediately turn my Blade Mail on. You can see he did try to focus me there. I'm going to go on him here, but I get a little bit lost and a little bit blocked out by all the trees and such. But I do pick up the kill on him eventually. Slayer does go down, but he's obviously got his respawn because that's just what he's like. Here we're going to try and go on this Crystal Maiden, but she's actually picked up a freaking Shadow Blade, which is not exactly recommended, but it does allow her to escape this time. On the other hand, her Weaver dies for it, which is a lot worse, and the Chaos Knight was dead as well because he was just farming out of position. That's never a place that you should be farming, guys, up in here, unless your team is, you know, here, possibly up here, but really they need to be covering you, or unless you're absolutely dominantly huge in the game. At which point you can farm wherever the hell you like, because you're going to kill everyone anyway. Accidentally put my Blade Mail then. Don't do that. Not a huge amount I can talk about, but yeah. The thing about the guides is, guys, is the ones on Steam, they're very easy to make. A lot of bad people make them, and they're all pretty poor. I've read a few of them myself. I remember sitting reading 2 or 3 of them with my friends and just laughing, basically, because they're all terrible, and then crying because I realised that you would occasionally play with people who are using guides like that. So you can see I go in for the double kill then, get both of them. Going to be hit with the Shadow Fiend ult, which is not exactly great. Luckily we have Tidehunter's Ravage and we do pick off the kill, along with using a good bit of Chakram and some Timber Chaining through. One thing with Timber Chain, guys, is you want to make sure that it's you don't want to initiate straight into the middle of a fight with it. Generally, you want to move around the outsides of fights and get kills on people around you. It's very, very easy for a Timbersaw to pick off a support hero in no time at all, compared to how difficult it is to actually go for somebody who's right in the middle of the fight. And a support hero who's left on the outside of the fight can have almost as much of an impact as a carry hero or a core hero can do. So I picked up a soul booster here. I disassembled my arcane boots to do this, so I had the arcane thing already, and all I had to buy was the VIP booster, because I already had the point booster as well. The arcane thingy? The arcane orb, that's the one. So soul booster, plus 450 mana, plus 400, plus 450 health, plus 400 mana, plus 4 HP regen, plus 100% mana regen. Pretty good overall. Doesn't give me a huge amount of mana to work with, but once it's turned into a bloodstone, it will give me definitely way more than this. And I'll also try and get some charges on this. I don't get too great charges this time. Slayer's trying to sneak a Roshan here. This is kind of a crazy attempt, and I kind of advised him to, because I thought, maybe we can get it. I don't think they have, we know they don't have wards up. We have these sentries here. Pretty much showing us they could have had a ward on the right hand side high ground on the little eye thing, but Slayer's actually struggling a little bit more with the Roshan than I expected. So, and I think the courier just flew over him, so I think he's actually kind of boned at this point. Luckily for him, he does have his respawn up, so I just threw out a little bit of chakram then just to see what was going on. So they do discover that he's there at this point. I turn off my chakram again and say to Slayer to focus the ward if he can. I'm just going to die fairly soon, so I'm just going to put myself up on the high ground here. There's no way that we could fight this. This was a bad fight. Slayer's gone down twice. We've lowered the Roshan for them, and they're very easily going to get this. So in the end, I advised Slayer to maybe try and sneak a Roshan. It was a bad call, definitely. There was no way I could have done for that, and wow, this guy is really, really aggressive to people, and I don't know why. So, I could have bought I just realised this. I could have probably bought from that secret shop there, but I instead TP back home because I needed to, and then go and finish up my bloodstone from here. As far as what a bloodstone gives you guys, it gives you 500 mana, 500 health, 400 mana, 9 HP regeneration, and 200% mana regeneration. It also has a 300 second pocket suicide cooldown that allows you to immediately commit suicide. The idea is to use it when the enemy was going to kill you anyway, just to avoid them getting gold, avoid them getting experience, etc, etc. Pick up a couple TP scrolls. You can see it looks like I have like no items right now, but I actually have like 7k worth of items. That's not bad considering that Timbersaw, well, at least Timbersaw is a good farmer, but that's not bad considering I don't have a large number of last hits, and I haven't had a huge game impact. I've been involved in 15 kills, which is not as much as Ash. Ash played a really, really good game this game, actually, and he played just a really, really nice Tidehunter support. Generally, Tidehunter isn't played as a support, but it is viable. He's much better as an offlaner or a solo mid even. So you can see there's the power of Timbersaw's farming ability. He's able to very, very quickly farm up camps. And that was the worst timber chain of my life. So at this point, further items that I might want to be looking towards, I could get Boots of Travel. I can also get a Shiva's Guard. Boots of Travel will mean that I'm allowed to move much faster around the map. I'm also allowed to TP whenever I need to. This saves me a lot of gold. I know a lot of people don't realise this, but Boots of Travel is pretty much always going to be cost effective unless you get it in the ultra late game, at which point you're getting it for other reasons. But it allows you to move around the map a lot faster. It allows you to get to positions where you want to try and fight the enemy team. It allows you to just gank a lot more. It just gives you a lot more options, and here that guy almost put in this bad situation, but luckily he does have a Shadow Blade, so Axe has a DD rune, which is completely shit on him. Don't get a DD rune on Axe, guys. It's pretty worthless. I did sell my bottle earlier, and this was to get as many items as possible towards my bloodstone. I wouldn't always advise this, but in this game it didn't really matter too much. And I just wanted my bloodstone as soon as possible. As well as this, every time that a kill happens around a bloodstone holder, you get more charges. The charges add, it reduces your respawn time, as well as giving you extra mana regen. So you can see here, I went into that fight, used my chakram, used a bit of timber chain as well as some whirling death, and got as much damage as I could off. I do manage to TP out from that fight, which is very, very lucky for us. We managed to get an even trade, but we lost two of our, Axe, who's not been doing very much this game, and we lost Tidehunter, who's a support hero. They lost a Shadow Fiend, and that's definitely worth it for us, especially considering he used the Black King bar up as well. You can see in a situation like that, I ran up to the high ground and I immediately used a TP scroll. This is because I knew they didn't actually have any stuns up at that point. I think the Chaos Knight might have done, but he instead elected to use his Reality Rift. Despite Reality Rift removing you, it does not actually stun you, and thus it doesn't cancel TP scrolls, so you'll still TP from essentially the same place. You'll just be moved slightly, and the TP animation will... or the TP sort of floor animation will be where it was originally, and the hero will have just moved. And luckily at this point, Slayer's starting to look more and more close to a World of Warcraft raid boss and less like a Dota hero, because he is getting huge. If he gets another item like a heart up, he's going to be practically invincible. He's very kiteable though, which is an issue that Skeleton King has and that Timbersaw does not have. Complete opposite, in fact. Timbersaw is one of the hardest heroes to get away from in Dota. He's very, very maneuverable. Timber Chain is only on 4-second cooldown, and it can move you up to 1,450 range as long as there's a tree in the radius of it. You can also cut your way through trees using Whirling Death and Chakram, and he does a lot of damage to his own jungle and the enemy jungle. You can see he's just a deforester. He doesn't like trees, and that's why he destroys them all. So, what can I say? So here Ash is baiting with an illusion, I think. Looks like there's another one up there. And really I should be farming a little bit more on this hero. I didn't feel like this was a good game for me, like I said before, but this is more to just explain how a solo mid-timber is played. So it looks like I'm going to be going for a Shiva's Guard. A Shiva's Guard will give me a lot more armor. This will make me a lot more survivable from the mat. It does reduce the effectiveness of my blade mail, but I'm not too bothered about that. I picked up the blade mail. It hasn't proved particularly hugely effective in this game. It's given me a little bit extra damage though on the enemy team when I've needed it, which is always nice to have. As well as this, it also gives me extra int, which will give me more mana. It will also give me further mana regen. The reason is because I already have a percentage mana regen bonus. Percentage mana regen is based off your intelligence. If you raise your intelligence and you get percentage mana regeneration, the two work very, very well together. If you just get intelligence, you will get some mana regeneration from this, but you will mostly end up with just an enormous mana pool and eventually have to go back to base because it'd be pretty poor mana regeneration. What you need on Timbersaw is a combination of both, which is quite a large mana pool as well as quite large mana regeneration. So you can see that again, trying to farm up more creeps. I'm also going to pick up some dust. This is just a general useful item, and because I'm not really a carry hero, I don't really need any more items than a bloodstone. A bloodstone isn't even necessary as anyway. Because of this, I don't need to worry too much about buying too many items, and so I can definitely pick up things like dust and stuff, and I definitely should do. That guy should really just TP away straight away, but he seems to be adamant to not do. So the mud golems there, they're immune to magic. Fuck that noise, I'm gonna go kill people instead. Who needs farm when you can just murder the enemy team, right? That's pretty much Timbersaw's motto. I mean, that and kill trees and stuff. He's really not a fan of trees. Again, Slayer getting closer and closer to a heart at this point. If he gets a heart at this point, he's going to be practically invincible. They don't have particularly good heroes to deal with him. They have kind of okay ones in a Weaver and a Shadow Fiend, but they're not being played by particularly amazing heroes. They're not being played by particularly amazing players, and they're being ganked a fair amount, so they don't have that much farm. This hasn't really been much of a farming game. So here I get frozen. Luckily, you can still use Timber Chain whenever you're pseudo-stunned like that. Ash dropped a ward down there, but we weren't able to get anything on the Crystal Maiden. She'd already managed to get out by the time it was dropped down, and the Shadow Fiend also blinked out. So for the moment we're really just waiting for Slayer to get to a certain level of farm. I can try and go for solo kills myself, but at this point the stage of the number of heroes that can actually solo kill easily is very, very low. If you look at a Weaver, he has a fair amount of HP pool. He also has a BKB, so he can make himself completely magic immune, meaning I'll do no damage at all. He's fairly good at killing me because he has a lot of minus armor, and he's also very maneuverable and hard to track down. He can go invisible, and he has time lapse, so there's no way I'm killing him. Pugner, I can kill Pugner, but it'll take me a lot to do so because he has Nether Ward. Nether Ward can damage me based on the amount of mana I use. I use a ton of mana. Chaos Knight, never an easy kill. It's a big knight on a horse. Look at him. Does he look like an easy guy to kill? No. Shadow Fiend, he's now picked up a Reaver. Looks like he's going to be going towards a Satanic. And he has a BKB, although its charges are getting a little bit lower, so he's not an easy kill on my own as well. Crystal Maiden, can kill her any day of the week. That's pretty much it. So here our team is pushing for the tier 2 on the bottom lane. We have much better split push, so whenever there's something like this happens, they have to come and defend. The reason for this is because the more towers that you take out, the easier it's going to be to take out further towers and to further push. So because of that, they have to come and defend all their towers whenever they get a chance to. This ended up being a really bad fight as far as I was concerned. I didn't manage to get off anything there. I'm going to throw out my chakram for Ashe, but it doesn't quite connect. And instead I'm going to try and get a kill here. Slayer is behind. We are going to manage to get this, I believe. And I do pick up the kill there, you can see, using Timber Chain. So I should possibly have given it to Slayer, but it's always possible with an armlet that you can toggle it to keep yourself alive. And you can see, despite the fact that I took a lot of damage early in that fight, I eventually ended up with a lot more armor based on the Assault Cuirass, the Plate Mail, the Blade Mail, and my passive, meaning that I was able to survive for a very, very long time in the end. So here I'm being hit by the Swarm, which does not actually proc extra levels of reactive armor. But I'm continuing to get hit by this guy. I'm trying as hard as I can to actually make it out, but I never have a chance to actually kill the Weaver Swarm on me. So it's probably going to kill me in the end, which is kind of saddening. And here I misclicked, hit the wrong tree. I didn't notice there was a tree there. I was trying to get up here. And I do eventually go down from that, but I managed to pick up 2.7k, which will mean that I can send the courier to the secret shop and pick up my Mystic Staff. This means that I'm only 600 gold from a Shiva's Guard that will give me an extra nuke. Slow, which is always very good. It's also a very, very strong aura that slows down the enemy attack speed. Very good considering they have a Chaos Knight, a Weaver, and a Shadow Fiend. I clicked on this guy, called him Weaver, and then clicked on this guy and called Shadow Fiend. My man. That doesn't look like Shadow Fiend to me. Look at him. God, if Shadow Fiend had these skills as well, that would be scary, wouldn't it? It would be like the ultimate hero. So I've picked up my Mystic Staff now. It's plus 25 intelligence. That's a shitload. It's also quite an expensive part to the item. I know a lot of people like to go for a sheep stick on Timbersaw. This is pretty good. It gives you an extra disable, and a disable is really, really strong on him because you don't actually have anything outside of chakram, and chakram's not that great. The idea being that you can actually do a fair amount of damage with your chakram, timber chain, as well as whirling death, sheep somebody so they're slowed down a little bit, and then put chakram on top of them to slow them down completely to a point where they don't have high enough health to actually move, and that's pretty much a guaranteed kill. You can go for an item like that. Personally, I opted for a Shiva's Guard this game because I don't have to worry too much about locking anyone down. This is because Slayer's just so incredibly hard to kill that I never really need to worry about any of them being difficult to get a hold of. So, you know. It looks like Slayer's actually going to finally pick up a BKB at this point. It's kind of a late BKB. It might be a Desolator, but a Desolator isn't a great option. He's going for this, and generally I think that's pretty much good. What else can I say? So again, moving around the map to try and continue getting extra farm. I could have gone Boots of Travel as well, guys. Boots of Travel is pretty strong. Gives you plus 100 movement speed, as well as allowing to TP you all over the map. This is just mostly really helpful for dealing with split pushers, and well as dealing with, you know, counter gankers and stuff, as well as dealing with gankers and such like that, because you can TP to your allies. This game I didn't need to worry about it too much, given that they have 3 heroes. They're kind of 3 heroes who are very, very good in the late game, and then 2 heroes who are definitely built around trying to keep their team alive for the first 20 minutes of the game, because otherwise they would just really struggle in the laning stage, particularly if they didn't have the Crystal Maiden and the Pugna. So picked up the gold for that. So they're actually much better in the ultra late game, even though that we have a Skeleton King and a Nature's Prophet who have fairly good scaling damage, and a Tidehunter who's very, very good in late game team fights. Here I'm back at the base trying to pick up my items. I'm not going to be in time to TP to my friends, so I'm just basically relying on them doing really, really well. This is not a good situation to go with. Slayer's going to get gone on here, and there's a lot of them up. I've TP'd as far as I can, but I'm telling him to just run, because we can actually, maybe if he survives, turn around and get more kills. So here I'm going to throw out my chakram. I'm taking the damage from him now, and you can see the amount of damage I take lowers the more hits I take. I'm now at max stacks though, so I don't want to stay in the fight any longer. It's only going to serve to get me killed, and I eventually get killed by the Pugna. However, Slayer has a possibility of actually turning around and getting more kills. Annoyingly though, he does get a kill there, and he actually picks up the Chaos Knight as well. So that was really pretty good play from him. He's going to go straight on this guy here, Mr. Bun, and hope to try and pick off the Pugna as well. He throws out a stun. Does manage to pick up the kill with the flames. Wow, that Weaver, I just realised that Weaver dodged his stun using his invis, which was a really good play by the Weaver actually. If the Weaver hadn't dodged his stun, Slayer would have won that fight there. So you can see just how scary Timbersaw is when you don't properly work as a team to deal with him, and it looks like he is actually going for a Desolator. So, not personally a fan of getting a Desolator this late into the game, but he might as well, and he's going to be soon selling his Hand of Midas anyway, so... So, respawned again. Every time I've died, I've lost some of my bloodstone charges. I'm actually now down to 5. It starts with 8 now. And this is not particularly good, but it's also not really a problem. Bloodstone gives you so much just from the base amounts that it gives you, that you don't actually need the extra charges. What the extra charges are there for is to help you snowball further. At this stage in the game though, Timbersaw starts to fall off really, really severely. And, I'm going to start speeding things up a little bit now, guys, because I want to actually get to the end of the game within an hour, because this game took a little bit long. Again, further farming in our own jungle, just trying to stay fairly safe. At this point, like I said before, I can't really go for anyone to solo kill. And I'm just going to keep things moving on fast so that you can see just exactly what's happening. The Nature's Prophet tries to split push, they try to hunt him down, they do hunt him down, he gets a nice kill. I'm going to go on the Weaver, but there's no way that we're ever going to get the Weaver. Thought he was TPing out, he doesn't actually. Correct move from the axe there, he gets on top of him, and we do actually pick up the kill. They were going for a Roshan, no way they could do that. Click on myself, so I know who I am. Again, just using Chakram to get myself extra assets and stuff. It's not exactly great policy, but it certainly works. And Slayer's going to pick up an Aegis of the Immortal here, and this is pretty much going to be the point where we're going to try and end the game. At this point, Slayer has 3 lives, essentially, possibly more if they don't kill him within 60 seconds of the first one going off. So pretty much more, because he is also extremely tanky in its own right. He has 3.9k HP, as well as 65% physical damage resistance, so he's practically invincible. Even in a team fight. So here we activate Blade Mail and go in for a good activate Blade Mail. Either way, we go in for a good team fight there. Axe initiates first. I'm going to follow in, pick off the Crystal Maiden. That guy's going to try and go on me. I'm going to keep on going out, but I do eventually go down. As soon as I'm back up, I'm going to immediately teleport back here again. But you can see I'm the only one that's actually died so far. Several of people have had to retreat out of the fight though. And Slayer's just going to work on this tower. We've managed to take out 3 of them. They're all on really long respawns as well.
Double kill.
Things are getting more and more worrisome for Slayer here, but he's gonna die. Immediately it uses up his ultimate. It uses the ultimate primarily rather than the Aegis, I believe, unless you, I think it depends on which order you pick it up. So I think if you pick up the Aegis when your ulti is off cooldown, it will use up the Aegis first. I don't know if that's true, so I can't really confirm that. But now, what means that Slayer has more like 3 or 4 lives rather than just the 3 is the fact that his ulti is going to be off cooldown again in another 30 seconds. So at this point Slayer becomes really, really scary and really hard to deal with. Because he's got his Aegis as well as the ultimate, it means that they have to kill him sort of 3 times within 60 seconds to actually fully kill him. If they don't do it within 60 seconds, he basically gains another life. So here I'm just trying to get up as fast as possible. You can see I'm even cutting my way through trees to just move as fast as possible here. If I can get to this area, then I know we can definitely win the fight. So I know the Crystal Maiden's in the middle of that, so I throw out my chakram for a little bit. Go in again, using my Shiva's Guard as well, just try and get extra damage off, as well as slow everybody down. As if I can slow everybody down, this makes it much, much easier for Slayer to focus a single hero. And that's exactly what he did there. See here, I turned on my Blade Mail, I'm going to get hit by the ulti on purpose. Sadly it doesn't work because he's turned on his BKB, but if the Shadow Fiend had used his ulti right on top of me like that with Blade Mail on, he would quite possibly have just instantly died. Things would have gotten very bad for him indeed. So again, Slayer's continuing to go forwards. I'm just trying to follow him and just, you know, put incidental damage on them, keep them back, and when we go for the rat barracks and such. And that's really what the objective is of any Dota game, so remember that. I know that sounds really obvious, guys, but most people just, you know, try and get kills a lot of the time and forget, yeah, and forget about the actual objective. So again, running into the middle of the fight with Blade Mail on, trying to keep everything up like this, and we do eventually get all the kills. Nature's Prophet actually picks up a triple kill from this, so a little bit unusual. He actually goes dominating with an ultra kill from that, which, you know, he is doing good damage at this point, but definitely not that much of the damage was done by him. So despite the fact that they killed him several times, he's now going to have his ulti back up in another like 40 seconds and has just lost his Aegis, so that's kind of how scary Slayer is at this point. So here you can see with max stats I actually have 27.9 health regen. This means that I can pretty much tank one tower, one tier 4 tower, not quite 2, but I can tank at least one tier 4 tower. Here I've also managed to pick up more bloodstone charges as well as finish my boots of travel. Very maneuverable now. It's very late, my boots of travel actually mean nothing now, but I can run really fast, so I guess there's that. Yeah, that's not that impressive, is it? So this is how to play Timbersaw, guys. I hope you've God, this guy's such a doucher. I hope you understand from this video how exactly to play Timbersaw, what exactly you should be doing as a mid. Yeah, he's a grade A douchebag. So, GG, you can see I've had pretty damn high game impact there. Fairly few number of deaths, not a huge amount, not too few either. Fairly low considering Slayer only has 5, as well as got myself a fair number of levels from that. You just want to be able to get out and gank a lot. You're not very maneuverable with the mid solo build, but you are going to be able to survive a lot longer, and because of that you'll probably do more damage. So thanks for watching, guys, GG and goodbye.